this room, we're surrounded by the people who are doing exactly that. The builders of the future, the architects of innovation, and the leaders shaping India's journey towards 2030. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the 9th edition of Next Brands Inc. India 2030 Leadership Conclave held under the aegis of Brand Vision Summit. More than just a conclave. Tonight, it is a celebration of vision, perseverance, and excellence. We are privileged to have with us some of the most remarkable minds from across industries, individuals and organizations who continue to raise the bar through their dedication, innovation, and leadership. Now moving on and calling on stage Ms. Chandrika Maheshwari, who's here to deliver the welcome address. I would like to invite her on stage. She's also the Joint Managing Director of Next Brands Inc. and the founder of India 2030 Leadership Conclave. She leads strategic platforms that convene visionary leaders and change makers, driving meaningful conversations that shape India's growth trajectory and spotlight excellence across sectors. Everybody, let's give it up for dynamic, beautiful, all-in-one Chandrika Maheshwari. So lovely to see you.
Thank you so much for the kind words, Gunjan. So, good evening, leaders, creators, entrepreneurs, and everyone in this room who truly matters. Welcome to India 2030 Leadership Conclave, powered by Kamdhenu Limited. Every year, this platform evolves, not by noise, but by intent. Tonight isn't about numbers or scale alone. It's about influence. Influence that builds businesses, shapes cultures, and quietly defines where India is headed next. This conclave has always been a meeting point of two worlds, corporate leadership and cultural leadership. And this year, that balance feels specifically important because India's growth story is written as much in boardrooms and by enterprises as it is also shared through stories, screens, and shared imagination. Many of you know Next Brands as a 13-year-old media and marketing group that has shaped narratives across the country, from national to regional platforms. Our work spans across curating content-driven IPs, media partnerships, production, and campaigns that don't just communicate, but tell stories with a purpose. One such milestone that I'd like to mention here on this platform is our latest podcast campaign that we did for our brand Herbalife India called Live Your Best Life Unscripted. The reason I mention that is because that particular campaign has crossed a staggering 100 million views across digital platforms. For us, it reinforced one simple truth. When stories are authentic, they travel. They travel far and wide. At the heart of what we do is people who matter. It's not a label, it's a lens, a way to recognize influence that is built on credibility, consistency, and real-world impact. And that is what will differentiate this new initiative of ours, People Who Matter, our digital media house platform that we are building going forward. As we also take our first steps towards this particular media house, we invite you all to grow with it, show it some love, and such platforms like these are only strongest when they are shaped by the people who they are represent. Heartfelt thank you to our partners, Kamdhenu Limited. Thank you, Sunil ji, for always believing in us. Mercedes-Benz Landmark Cars, Mumbai, Times Now, India Times, Art Media, and Khushi Advertising for their continued support and turning this evening into a reality. To everyone in this room, speakers, awardees, partners, and friends, thank you for being a part of this journey. Tonight is about recognition, but it is also about momentum, and the momentum is here. Thank you and welcome to the India 2030 Leadership Conclave. Now may I please invite Mr. Sunil Agarwal, Director, Kamdhenu Group, to come up on stage.
Thank you, Chandrika. आए हुए सभी इंडिया 2030 कॉन्क्लेव में जितने भी गेस्ट हमारे लोग आए हैं सभी का कामधेनु की तरफ से बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। एज यू नो, कामधेनु एक वेल नोन ब्रांड है, और वेल नोन ब्रांड बनने के लिए उसको ऐसे ही नहीं बना। ब्रांड मीन्स एश्योरेंस ऑफ क्वालिटी एंड कंसिस्टेंसी एंड कमिटमेंट। अगर कोई ब्रांड है, वेल नोन ब्रांड है, तो इसका मतलब है कि क्वालिटी और एश्योरेंस कमिटमेंट कंपनी की तरफ से श्योर है। बहुत साल पहले मैं एक प्रोग्राम में गया, तो उन्होंने ऐसे ही पूछा कि वर्ल्ड के टॉप 100 ब्रांड की अगर हम बात करें तो इंडिया में कितने ब्रांड हैं। उनमें से शायद एक भी याद नहीं आया। किसी ने कहा टाटा, रिलायंस, जितने भी वर्ल्ड के ब्रांड लें, चाहे एलवी चाहे गुच्ची, सब इंटरनेशनल ब्रांड हैं। मन में ख्याल आया कि यार कोशिश तो की जा सकती है कि हम भी एक इंटरनेशनल ब्रांड बने। कम से कम कोशिश तो करें कि पूरे हिंदुस्तान को एक घर, जो एक अच्छा और मजबूत घर हम दे पाएँ, तो हम उसकी कोशिश करें। तभी से कामधेनु ने इस तरफ से कोशिश की। एवरी डे वी आर ट्राइंग टू एजुकेट द पीपल व्हाट टू डू, how to use the steel, the correct steel. लगभग एवरी मंथ हम 100 से ज़्यादा कॉन्फ्रेंस करते हैं, जिसमें हम लोगों को एजुकेट करते हैं कि क्या स्टील, क्यों, कैसे, कब लगाना है, कहाँ से लेना है। पूरे इंडिया के अंदर कामधेनु की 30,000 से ज़्यादा आउटलेट्स हैं, लगभग 500 से ज़्यादा डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स हैं, 110 से ज़्यादा हमारी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट हैं। पूरे ऑल ओवर इंडिया में लगभग हमारा जो है एक 6 मिलियन टन की इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी है, और जो आने वाला समय है इसमें हम इस इंस्टॉल्ड कैपेसिटी को लगभग 2030 की अगर मैं बात करूं तो 10 मिलियन टन से ज़्यादा की प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी हम लोग इंस्टॉल करने वाले हैं। फ्रेंड्स, this is a conclave for the 2030 India. इंडिया 2030 में क्या होगा, हम कहाँ खड़े होंगे, ये सबका अलग अलग विज़न है। बट मुझे एक विज़न अभी दिखाई देता है कि जो ईरान और अमेरिका या पता नहीं किस किस की लड़ाई हो रही है, मुझे भी नहीं मालूम है। एवरीबडी इज़ लुकिंग टू द इंडिया। शायद हम सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट हैं। रशिया भी कह रहा है कि इंडिया मेरा दोस्त है, ईरान भी कह रहा है, इजराइल भी कह रहा है, और अमेरिका भी कह रहा है, और सब लोग कह रहे हैं कि इंडिया हमारा दोस्त है। ये दोस्ती अपने आप में ये कह रही है कि इंडिया 2030 में कहाँ होगा। शायद जो हम 2030 में 3rd लार्जेस्ट इकनॉमी होने वाले हैं, हम होने वाले हैं। इसके अलावा जो 2030 में हमारी भारत सरकार ने एक एजुकेशन के लिए और हेल्थ के लिए जो फैसिलिटीज़ दी हैं, 2030 के अंदर हम लार्जेस्ट वर्किंग एज, अभी हमारी वर्किंग एज शायद 55-58 पर रिटायर हो जाते हैं। इट मे बी ये 1 साल, 2 साल, 3 साल और मे बी 5 ईयर। काम तो हम लोग 80 साल तक करते हैं, लेकिन अभी ये एक एज लिमिट जो है 58 ईयर, आई थिंक समवेयर 58, समवेयर 55। हम रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के अंदर इंडिया के अंदर लगातार इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है, और इतना इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रहा है कि शायद आने वाले 2-3 साल के अंदर हम जो है टोटल एनर्जी कंजम्पशन का 60-70% रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी से हम लोग कैटर कर सकते हैं। कंट्री को अगर एक ग्लोबल एक ग्रोथ इंजन चाहिए तो इंफ्रा के अंदर जो है सबसे ज़्यादा एक्सपेंसेस, सबसे ज़्यादा एक एक्सपेंडिचर होगा, और उस हर इस इंफ्रा के अंदर अगर हिंदुस्तान की एक ग्रोथ का बजट से 100 लाख करोड़ का बनेगा तो लगभग 12% स्टील लगता है। अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 12% स्टील का मतलब ये हो गया कि 12 लाख करोड़ का स्टील लगेगा। ये 2020 की फिगर होगी कि 2029 की फिगर होगी, आई डोंट नो, लेकिन कंट्री हमारा इक्विप्ड है, जो भी स्टील की कंजम्पशन होगी और जो बेस्ट क्वालिटी होगी, वो बेस्ट क्वालिटी स्टील कामधेनु अपने तरीके से, अपने रिसोर्सेज से सप्लाई करने के लिए, बनाने के लिए वी आर रेडी। और हम जिस तरह से इतने साल से काम कर रहे हैं, हमें लगभग कामधेनु ब्रांड को मोर देन 30 ईयर्स हो गए हैं। 1994 में हमने काम शुरू किया था, आज 32 ईयर्स हो गए लगभग। और हम लोगों ने हमेशा से एक ही चीज़ रखी है, क्वालिटी एंड कमिटमेंट, नॉट चीपेस्ट। हम रीजनेबल प्राइस पे एक बेस्ट क्वालिटी स्टील पूरे हिंदुस्तान में आज बना रहे हैं, और इसी कमिटमेंट के साथ रीजनेबल प्राइस एंड बेस्ट क्वालिटी हम आगे भी पूरे, जब तक हमारी लाइफ है, जब तक हम लोगों का विज़न है, हम लोग काम करेंगे। मैं ज़्यादा समय नहीं लूँगा, चंद्रिका ने 5 मिनट के लिए बोला था कि 5 मिनट से ज़्यादा नहीं है, तो मैं यही कहूँगा, आज जो लोग यहाँ पर प्रेजेंट हैं, जिन लोगों ने अपने अपने एरिया में बहुत अच्छा काम किया, उनके लिए सेलिब्रेशन का दिन है। मैं दिल से उन्हें बधाई देता हूँ, उम्मीद करता हूँ उन लोगों के लिए सपोर्ट करूँगा, जो भी आप लोग करें, आगे बढ़ें। देश का भविष्य आप ही हैं। धन्यवाद।
Well, thank you, Mr. Sunil, for that talk. We appreciate how you're building India's future through a solid, trusted brand. Once again, I extend a very warm welcome to all our distinguished guests, partners, and leaders present here today. Let us begin the spectacular evening dedicated to honoring those who truly represent the spirit of India 2030, which are all of you. So let's give a huge round of applause to all you guys who've made us here today to part of this celebration. And as we look ahead to India's journey of growth and scale, we kickstart this evening with our first discussion, Bharat at Scale, powering India's growth story. Well, this panel brings together leaders from advanced manufacturing, infrastructure-linked industries, and core engineering to explore how India is scaling its industrial and economic ambitions. With perspectives from air handling and HVAC solutions, steel and manufacturing building materials, and applied electromagnetics, the discussion will examine how infrastructure expansion, manufacturing excellence, and technology-driven innovation are shaping Bharat's growth at scale. May I now call upon Mr. Sumit Lakhutia, Senior News Editor at Times Network, the moderator for this discussion. Everybody, let's give a huge round of applause. Well, thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you, Gunjan, for that. This is going to be a very interesting panel discussion to find out from different stalwarts from across industries their view on how they're seeing India's growth story pan out. So without further ado, I'd like to call up on stage my panelists. First up, we have Mr. Suresh Kumar Goyal, Chairman of Sambhav Steels. Thank you so much, sir. We have Lata Vashisht, Founder and CEO at Adhya Airtech. Hi, Lata. Please. Lata's got a very interesting company, Adhya Airtech. They work in the HVLS fans space, high volume, low speed. We'll talk about that. Next up, Ishita Agarwal, Director at Kamdhenu Limited. Hi, Ishita. Of course, we've all heard of the name Kamdhenu, so this makes my job easier. I don't have to give so much of an introduction on what Kamdhenu does. Hi, Ishita. And finally, we have Dhruv Maheshwari. He's with Applied Electromagnetics. They do a lot of interesting work in the defense and infrastructure sector, and we'll find out more about that. Hi, Dhruv. Please. Superb. So let's kickstart. Dhruv, actually, I want to start with you because, well, the sector that you're representing here on the panel is very much in the news. I mean, us media personnel are just going gaga on with all what's happening. I'm sorry, I meant that as a joke. Obviously, it's a very serious situation. But Jokes aside, on a serious note, Dhruv, you know, the sector is very much in the news. But how do you see India's position in the defense sector on a global stage? I'm not talking from a politics angle. I'm talking from a infrastructure, from a business angle. How are you seeing this sector currently, India's strength in this or India's scope in it? What's your viewpoint?
We have always been a net importer in terms of defense. We've been one of the biggest importers. We spend a lot of forex on defense imports. But last few years, let's say 5 years or so, India has made tremendous growth by leaps and bounds in terms of defense exports. The year ended FY26, India exported defense goods worth 38,000 crores. And that was a jump of almost 62% from the previous year. So it's an exponential growth that we are seeing. And that is only not happening only because of all the uncertainties and the wars that are happening in the world, but also because we as a country are being recognized as a consistent and a quality manufacturer for defense goods in terms of exports. In the next 5 years, the government has targets to reach 1 lakh crores in terms of defense exports. So, of course, this is right now a very, very hot sector to be in. And this will form a big part of Indian growth story.
I like how you said, Dhruv, the point that, you know, this has been over a period of years, which is great because the main point there is that this is not a one-night story. Ecosystem, manufacturers like yourself, others have worked towards it, and we are working more towards it. Because I do remember, I think it was last week also that the defense minister shared the same statistics that you shared, and it showed a monumental growth in exports, which is obviously great for the country. सुरेश जी, I'll come to you now. एक आपसे भी manufacturing related question ही पूछूंगा. देखिए, आपने अभी फिलहाल नहीं, मतलब एक आपकी एक फुल्ली बैकवर्ड इंटीग्रेटेड मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी चल रही है इन छत्तीसगढ़, इन टिल्डा. उसमें आपकी क्या लर्निंग्स रही है? बिकॉज माय पॉइंट इज ऑल्सो कनेक्टिंग ध्रुव्स पॉइंट कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में ही अभी ग्रोथ, इंडिया हैज़ द पोटेंशियल. सो आपकी क्या लर्निंग्स रही है जो आप हमारे व्यूअर्स को गाइड कर पाएँ कि यू नो सम थिंग्स जो है जो आपने सीखा, जो आई मीन इट विल बिकम ईजियर फॉर देम इफ those people are out there starting their businesses or expanding their businesses.
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सुमित भाई. इस सभागार में सुनील अंकल बैठे हुए हैं. मैं सबसे पहले उनको प्रणाम करता हूं कि कामधेनु में हमने शुरुआती दिनों में अपने जीवन के उनसे बहुत कुछ सीखा. और जब मैं बात करूं, आपने जो मुझे प्रश्न पूछा है कि मेरी इंटीग्रेशन के अंदर में मेरे को क्या लर्निंग मिली, तो सबसे पहले मैं बता दूं कि संभव स्टील जो है उसमें हम सबसे पहले जो है वो आयरन ओर और कोयला ख़रीदते हैं और उसके द्वारा हम स्पॉन्ज आयरन बनाते हैं जो रॉ मटेरियल होता है स्टील के लिए. और उससे जो हमारी वेस्ट निकलती है उससे हम पावर बनाते हैं और फिर उसको हम मेल्ट करते हैं स्टील मेल्टिंग शॉप में, और फर्दर जो है उसको रोलिंग करके हम स्ट्रिप बनाते हैं. और स्ट्रिप से फिर फर्दर जिस चीज़ की ज़रूरत होती है, पाइप की जिस साइज़ की ज़रूरत होती है बनाते हैं. तो ये कंप्लीट जो रॉ मटेरियल से आप फिनिश बनाते हैं, इसी को हम इंटीग्रेशन कहते हैं स्टील में. और स्टील में जब इंटीग्रेशन की बात हम करते हैं तो हम ये देखते हैं कि एक आपको रॉ मटेरियल से लेके फिनिश तक आपके हाथ में एक चैन आती है. आप क्वालिटी के मामले में अपने आप को कंसिस्टेंट कर पाते हैं क्योंकि आपको लगातार एक रॉ मटेरियल अवेलेबल होता है. और जहाँ तक बात रायपुर की है तो हमें वहाँ पे ये एडवांटेज मिलता ही है कि हमें एक जैसा रॉ मटेरियल वहाँ पे मिल जाता है, क्योंकि वहाँ पे NMDC जैसी कंपनियाँ हैं जो लगातार एक जैसा मटेरियल हमको देती हैं आयरन ओर के रूप में. और अगर मैं बात करूँ तो ये इंटीग्रेशन ही मेरी स्ट्रेंथ है. आप कहते हैं लर्निंग क्या है, तो ये मेरी स्ट्रेंथ है. इसी ने मुझे जो आगे बढ़ाया और मैं यहाँ आपके सामने बैठा हूँ और मैं आज अपने प्रोडक्ट दे पा रहा हूँ मार्केट में. और उसका कारण ही इंटीग्रेशन है, क्योंकि मेरे पास में पूरी एक सप्लाई चेन को मैनेज करने के लिए रॉ मटेरियल की अवेलेबिलिटी भी अपनी छत के नीचे है और फिनिश बनाने की ताकत भी अपने नीचे है. अच्छा, बात करते हैं मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की, तो मैं समझता हूँ आप किसी भी देश में देख लीजिए, आप देख लीजिए अमेरिका, यूरोप की बात कर लीजिए, उनमें वो 20 साल जो शुरू के थे वो अमेरिका और यूरोप ने मैन्युफैक्चरिंग के द्वारा ही तरक्की की. फिर 20 साल चाइना ने तरक्की की. मैं समझता हूँ अब मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और हम तरक्की की ओर हैं। तो जिस देश में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग होगी वही तरक्की की ओर बढ़ेगा। तो ये भारत की बिल्डिंग का एक अहम, मैं समझता हूँ, हिस्सा है ये।
बहुत बढ़िया सर, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात आपने कही, क्योंकि लोग भी यही कह रहे हैं कि दिस इज इंडियाज डेकेड, इंडियाज नेक्स्ट टू डेकेड्स। तो इस मतलब आगे चलकर बहुत कुछ देखने को मिलेगा, बहुत कुछ ग्रोथ देखने को मिलेगी। लता, नाउ आई कम टू यू. So your company Adya Airtech, they work in these high volume, low speed fans. For the audience or for the viewers, if you've been to any of the airports, if you've been to any factories, they have those huge fans at the top, almost 8 feet long in diameter. What got you into this industry? Matlab, were you in some place and you were feeling really hot and you're like, I wish there was a big fan here? How did you think of this idea?
Okay. I think I have to thank the pandemic first of all.
Oh, interesting.
That is when I ventured into this business. Actually, we were into HVAC solutions. So the pandemic struck. These products were introduced to us somewhere in 2016-17 by one of our acquaintances. But then these products were highly expensive, around 5 to 6 lakh per fan. And those days, 16-17, we studied the Indian market. We were all like, we are for cheap and best products. We are known for that in the world. So then we thought, no, this is not a cup of tea. We did our initial R&D. The products were good, but when it came to the pricing, somewhere we thought this is not for us, for the Indian market. But I had to take up my PhD, research studies. And I had to present my papers in national and international conferences, wherein I had to visit countries like Thailand, Malaysia, and then Singapore. When we went to Singapore, there's an island called as Sentosa Island, where we had to, travel through the railway junctions. And every junction had the same fan. Now it's struck, whether this is luck or destiny. So the R&D, which had stopped between 16 to 18, we said, we'll go back. We'll take this up. We wanted to bring these fans back to India. But when we came here, we got to know that, one or two manufacturers already existed, especially in the Gujarat region. And then, fortunately, one of our clients wanted the same product, but our R&D was somewhere halfway. But he said, no, whatever you do, you get a dealership, get a distributorship, whatever it is, you are our vendor, so get us these fans. So that is when we got into it. We started with dealership. But when we started marketing, especially the MSME sectors, when we visited, one of our clients, prospective ones, they said, our roofs don't have the capability to hold so much of weight. Those weighed around 190, 180 kgs, 200 kgs for that matter. So that is when it struck. Okay, for the MSME sector, we need to reduce the weight.
Wow.
We need to reduce the noise. And mainly, we need to reduce the prices.
Of course.
So then the R&D again started. And come pandemic, AC business slipped. That was the time when AC wasn't in news also. People were saying, don't use AC because of the health concerns. So then we thought, okay, we have to launch this because there was no other option for us, even for the bread and butter. That was the condition. So thank God, thank goodness, we got into this industry, got into manufacturing. And wherever we are today, thanks to these HVLS fans.
Fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but two lessons I want to take from that. One is the old famous saying that when a door shuts, a window opens. Aapka AC business almost had come down, but you had this to do. Second is, always go for a holiday because you never know where you'll get a next big business idea.
Travel.
Travel.
The biggest lesson in my life, wherever I've traveled, whether it is people, whether it is product, even the, non-living entities for that matter teach you a lot. So learn from everything.
I'm going to tell my boss that. I need a long holiday. Ishita, I want to come to you on one interesting point. Of course, like I said in my introduction, everybody knows about Kamdhenu. Everybody's heard about Kamdhenu. But from your experience, I would like your insights that how are you seeing Indian companies? So the growth is no longer just in 4 metro, 5 metro cities. The growth is all over India. Har kone mein there is a growth potential. How are you seeing that these companies are scaling nationwide? Because ek cheez ye bhi hai that India is so large and so different. Matlab India mein hi alag-alag, you can't even say alag sheher hai. It's almost like they're separate countries within this one large country. So just your thoughts on how companies can scale nationwide.
I think India is a very young country. So if you see, the median age of the population of India is about 28, 29 years. And you would say 60% of our population is below 40 years. So this generation, it is very aspirational. Even if they are living in tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think they aspire to have an urban lifestyle, even if it is not available, but you know, they want to live that lifestyle. Like, we are living in a digital era. So because of the availability of e-commerce and logistics in place, I think a lot of things are available even in the smaller towns, in tier 2 cities like Allahabad, Kochi, Coimbatore, Jaipur, all these cities. And I think right now we are in that era where everything is digital. So we have classes happening online, we have doctor consultations happening online. So the reach is so much more. So like, of the context, I'm following a functional nutritionist. So she is somewhere in some other part of the country and I'm in some other part of the country, and everything is happening. It's not like I'm living in a tier 2 city. I'm living in a metropolitan city. But even then, I'm consulting her. So everything is available everywhere. And with the presence of, I think, a lot of disposable income, because in these small towns, you don't have like so many expenses. So there is a availability of disposable income, because of which I think companies can penetrate, and these tier 2, tier 3 cities are going to be the future, I think, growth engines of the country, because whatever is happening is already happening in the urban cities. It is these tier 2, tier 3 cities where the growth prospects are much, much, much higher. Even if you talk about like our company, the steel consumption is much more higher in these cities. Like, it is difficult for us, like logistics are difficult.
Yeah.
To reach that, you know, last milestone कि अगर किसी को 6 टन की गाड़ी देनी है, 8 टन की गाड़ी देनी है, those logistics have to be managed. But it is aspirational. आज भी हमें in small towns से like hundreds of applications every day we are getting for dealership. Because it is aspirational. Everybody wants to have Kamdenu. Everybody wants to be associated with the brand. People don't have to, dealers don't have to work a lot to, you know, sell the product. Like, on the contrary, I would say it is not so much present in the metropolitan cities. It is these tier 2, tier 3 cities where it is much more aspirational. So I think aspirational वाला जो point है, वो बहुत ज़्यादा है.
Fantastic, Ishita. That's a very valid point. And I'll just take that to Suresh ji, क्योंकि सर आपसे भी यही पूछना चाहूँगा मैं. इशिता ने भी कहा कि जैसे tier 2, tier 3 में ग्रोथ दिख रही है. आपके भी स्टील पाइप्स में कहाँ सबसे ज़्यादा ग्रोथ आपको अर्बन सेंटर्स में ज़्यादा दिख रही है, या आपको भी लग रहा है कि जैसे tier 2, tier 3 स्मॉल टाउन सब जगह डिमांड बढ़ रही है? इट्स नॉट जस्ट कुछ सेक्टर्स में रिस्ट्रिक्टेड.
देखिए, जहाँ तक हमारी स्टील की पाइप्स की डिमांड है, तो मैं कहूँगा कि पूरे भारत के अंदर में ही ये डिमांड बढ़ रही है. बट क्योंकि ये स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोजेक्ट है, और ये स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोजेक्ट होने के कारण आप जब इसके फैब्रिकेशन में यूज़ करते हैं, मेनली इसमें फैब्रिकेशन में यूज़ होता है इसका, तो आप जहाँ फैब्रिकेशन होगा वहाँ इसका यूज़ होगा. हाँ, ये कह सकते हैं कि अगर हम बात करें ERW पाइप की, तो ERW पाइप एक अलग सेगमेंट में यूज़ होता है. अगर हम बात करें स्टेनलेस स्टील पाइप की, वो अलग सेगमेंट में यूज़ होता है. जैसे मान लीजिए डेकोरेशन में ज़्यादा यूज़ होता है. अगर हम बात करें प्री गैल्वनाइज्ड पाइप की, तो वो कोस्टल बेल्ट में यूज़ होता है. तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि ये प्रोडक्ट, चाहे आप रूरल की बात करें तो, अर्बन की बात करें तो, सब जगह. हाँ, लेकिन एक बात तय है कि अब भारत जो है वो सब जगह ग्रोथ कर रहा है. भारत एक जगह कहीं छुपा हुआ बैठा नहीं है. भारत के लोग जो हैं वो प्रॉस्पेरिटी सब तरफ है. कुछ आप कह दीजिए कि कुछ फ्लो गाँव की तरफ पैसे का हुआ है, लोगों की इनकम बढ़ी है. तो हर व्यक्ति, अब जैसे बात करें घर बनाने की, तो घर बनाने के लिए भी पैसा दिया जा रहा है सरकार द्वारा, कोई स्कीम लाई जा रही है. तो उस निचले स्तर पे भी जो बैठा हुआ व्यक्ति है वो अपना घर बना पा रहा है. तो उसकी जो ज़रूरत है, चाहे वो गेट की ज़रूरत हो, चाहे वो एक छपरी लगानी है उसकी ज़रूरत हो, वहाँ जब पाइप की ज़रूरत होगी तो वो पाइप वहाँ लगेगा। तो आप कह सकते हैं कि पूरे भारत के अंदर में समान रूप से, परंतु भारत बहुत मजबूती से आगे बढ़ रहा है। तो यही स्टोरी आपको ये देखने मिलेगी कि लगातार हर जगह पे ये बनी रहेगी, हर जगह जरूरत बनी रहेगी।
Wow, that's great. That's great to know. Dhruv, I'll come to you. Slightly extension of this question. Ishita and Sureshji have spoken about the domestic. I want to talk to you about the international aspect because, as per my understanding, you've also started manufacturing in Zimbabwe in Africa. Now, Africa is considered the new hot spot, and there's a lot of conversation about a lot of growth coming from there. But how are you seeing the manufacturing landscape there and being different from what you've done in India? What are some of the major differences you're seeing?
In Zimbabwe, we are into manufacturing of packaging materials. If I compare Indian manufacturing and African manufacturing, I would say that India is, of course, a matured market in terms of manufacturing. We evolved over a period of years. Where we are now, it's just because of the years of hard work, labor that our entrepreneurs and our government has put in. And if I see Africa today in terms of manufacturing is what India was in 1990s, honestly. So yes, you cannot compare it. There are issues with regard to foreign exchange. There are issues with regard to compliances. It has its set of challenges. There's a supply chain problem as well. But then there is opportunity. As there was opportunity in 1990s in India, there's a very similar opportunity in Zimbabwe. You cannot expect the scale of the manufacturing what you have in India. But in Africa, the margins are far more better than what it is in India. And this Africa as per se is the region which is currently the most underdeveloped on a macro level, on the level of on the scale of the world. Right. So that's what I see Africa from 10 years from now or 15 years from now is what India is today. A much matured market and obviously an aspirational market. Most of the countries are now coming out from poverty and everyone wants to have a better life, better products to use, and most of the governments are working hard towards getting that to their people.
Okay, so definitely we have to keep our eyes on Africa for the next many years, in fact. Lata, I want to talk to you a little bit about your industry. If you can tell me a little bit, so because this is an industry which not many people would be so aware of, can you tell us a little bit about the scope, the scale of the industry? Where else would we be able to see these fans as layman audience?
Yep. I think HVLS fans, when we started way back in 2020, people were not even aware of what's the full form of HVLS. That was the condition when we started. We had to tell each and everyone that this stands for high volume, low speed fans. It's just the opposite of what you see at homes. There, the volume of air is less, but the speed is more. Here, it's exactly opposite. Volume of air is more, whereas the speed is less. So awareness was not there initially. Secondly, even though it was in the infancy stage there and it was getting introduced somewhere during the 2020s, even today if you see, it's not that market which is already in the growth stage. It is now growing slowly. So if you see, the research tells so many things about these markets. But however, if you go to the web, in fact, it's quite confusing when you see the numbers. Each one of the research agencies have a number to give it to you. However, if you take the overall, then I think the global market, they say it's around valued around 6 billion. By 2030, it may reach, double or triple of that. But, at a CAGR of 6.3 to 6.8%. But when you take the Indian market, they're very optimistic. They are saying the CAGR will be around 12.9%. That's because we are net importers. We are a market to every product available in the world, and specifically if it's, imported, then yes, people go for it. When, when it comes to make in India, it is a little tough. So what I feel is the market is quite optimistic. It's quite promising. The future is promising. However, I would like to say that, it's not enough if we are net importers. Thanks to geopolitical tensions, the world is becoming much protectionist in nature. When it comes to policies, they are highly protective of their own countries, and we are talking about friendshoring and nearshoring today. So in that sense, if you speak of, I think India has to grow with any manufacturing as such, you know, we have to focus on self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat, as we are saying, and then we have to focus on digital first and sustainability. That is where my product comes in. When you speak about energy efficiency, green factories, net zero targets, then my product pitches in. You know, because we stand for highly energy efficient fans and sustainable and green products. So that is how it's growing.
Okay, great. That's great to know, because yes, that sustainability angle is so very important. It's not something that it's no longer an either or choice. Every business
Correct.
has to include that.
Yes.
Ishita, I'm almost running out of time. I have one last question and then one quick rapid fire for everybody on the panel. But you know, Ishita, one thing is there that when we talk about today, there is speed in everything. You know, there's growth. Things are growing fast. Whether it's infrastructure, roads are being built, homes are being built, etc. How do you see this middle path where companies need to be fast but not at the cost of trust and quality? How do they walk that middle path?
So I think the answer is in the system and the processes. You can't do the same thing like in a very speedy manner, otherwise you're going to lose on the quality. And I think it takes decades for a company to build that trust about, you know, about the quality, that the quality is good. And today the market is really quality conscious. People are willing to pay any amount of money for that little value addition. So we cannot compromise in any way on the quality. The only thing you can do to speed up the process is that you can make the systems in a way that things turn out fast. Of course, there is a lot of robotics now available. Also, you know, so like for example, if I have to, like if I want to, like properly and in a speedy manner, if I want to time my TMT bundles. So I can use a process wherein it can happen fast. I can use more number of teams, but it can't be that, you know, I overlook things. So all that QC is not something that you can skip, but the only thing you can work on the processes. Things have to be made in a very mechanical manner. You know how you see कि हाँ इतना डाला ये करा and this is ready. तो वो एक आप process बना सकते हो, but आप process को skip नहीं कर सकते. To
Got it.
get
So
to that
some
speed.
things have to be done to set the foundation. उसके बिना हो ही नहीं, मतलब उस इतनी जल्दबाजी भी नहीं करनी चाहिए.
Quality is something that you cannot compromise
Yeah.
even to the
Absolutely, क्योंकि that building that trust takes years, decades, and it can be lost in a second. So we don't want to do that.
Yes.
We're just about out of time, but one question to all. Dhruv, I'll start with you and then move down the panel. Just everybody, your thoughts. Over the next decade, जैसे सुरेश जी आपने भी कहा, everybody was saying that this is like India's time. It is India's decade, India's 2 decades. What does India have to do right, or what does India need to ensure it doesn't do? एक चीज, या तो एक आप बोले जो करनी चाहिए इंडिया को या नहीं करनी चाहिए इंडिया को to go on the correct path.
So I would say growth at the cost of innovation, R&D, quality and consistency. So just not running and getting your numbers up rather than and not focusing on innovation and technology,
Right.
upgradation and your consistency and quality.
Fantastic.
So that's most important, I think.
Okay, सुरेश जी आपके.
मैं समझता हूँ भारत के अंदर में अब आप ये कह सकते हैं कि अगला जो सेंचुरी है या सेंचुरी कह दूँ मैं, अगला दशक जो है भारत का है, तो भारत को अपनी क्वालिटी के दम पे ही जीतना पड़ेगा. हमारे पास में मैन पावर है. आज पूरे वर्ल्ड के अंदर में हम सर्विस दे सकते हैं. सर्विस तो दे ही रहे हैं, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सर्विस दे सकते हैं. और क्या नहीं करना है, हमको ट्रस्ट को ब्रीच नहीं करना है.
Very important. Quality with trust, hand in hand. Lata, your turn.
I think instead of becoming just suppliers of scale, we have to be globally recognized as high quality brands, you know, in the first
Great.
place.
Yeah.
Second thing is that leadership is very important today. Leaders have to move from being controllers to becoming enablers. They have to be collaborative ecosystem builders.
Wow.
And they have to move from being, you know, the rock star CEOs, they have to move towards chief design decisioner, chief decision designers,
Right.
and along with speed in execution, and build that eco-level system strength. Because I come from the manufacturing sector. If you see the MSME dashboard even today, if you take around 79 million MSMEs, in them, the trading sector eats the biggest chunk with 33 million. The service sector, 26 million. Then comes, the manufacturing sector with around 16 million. But when you see China, Taiwan, Korea and all, South Korea especially for that matter, the manufacturing sector used to contribute to around 25 to 30% during their development phase.
Wow. So
Whereas,
that is very important.
where
We need
we
to
are
focus.
in 15 to 17%.
Okay,
So
that's
I
interesting.
focus on state-directed, state-architected plans wherein we can move ahead and see to it that we become a global manufacturing, innovation-led economic powerhouse.
Fantastic. Ishita, your last thoughts.
I think growth is one thing, but growth वो होती है जो sustainable हो. It should be steady, sustainable growth for the everyday Indian consumer. Growth cannot be in a way that the consumer, there has to be a balance between the inflation and the, earnings, the increase in the earnings. So sustainability is very, very important. Whatever growth that we are seeing, if it is too fast or it is too slow, it cannot be sustainable. So, for example, if I would say in tier 2, tier 3 cities or in any of the cities, if there is growth, but right now, digital era is there, right? So digital things are available, but even today there are many platforms like digital trust is not there. So everything has to be in a sustainable manner for India to reach that level where the growth should be really, really strong. So wherever it is reaching, it should be able to stay over there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, panelists. Focus on quality, trust, sustainability, and leadership in manufacturing.
One more thing, I think, before we forget, we are focusing on made in India. Please focus on design in India. Please invest in R&D and
Absolutely,
patents.
very
patents
important.
Create those proprietary technologies. Just don't adopt the foreign ones. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for my panel. Thank you so much. And back to Gunjan for this.
Well, having talked about such important discussion about what the future of India looks like, we're now moving on and calling on stage. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Poona Jain, Special Correspondent, Times Network, the moderator for the Fireside Chat, to join us on stage. Everybody, let's give a huge round of welcome to Pooja Jain. And now let's invite on stage the leaders behind one of India's most enduring healthcare brands, Dr. Mukesh Batra, everybody, and Dr. Akshay Batra, as we explore building brands that endure trust, legacy, and leadership in India 2030. Well, over to you, Pooja. You have a very interesting conversation coming up. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll leave you guys to it.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. And one of the central themes tonight is, of course, leadership, as we've heard from all the prior speakers. And when it comes to leadership, and when it comes to the marathon of life and leadership, I think there are two certainties. The first of which is you can't run forever. And the second of which is you perhaps can't run the entire track alone. So when you think about it, leadership is structured more like a relay race, wherein one generation runs its leg before handing over the reins to the next. And it's that accumulation of races that perhaps creates a legacy. So how is Dr. Batra's Healthcare, a brand that has become synonymous with homeopathy across India and beyond, scripting its legacy? Well, fortunately, I'm joined by a father-son duo to help me determine just that. Once again, a huge round of applause for Dr. Mukesh Batra and Dr. Akshay Batra.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Mukesh, I'm going to start the conversation with you. When you founded Dr. Batra's Healthcare over 50 years ago, I think what you perhaps had in mind was that every citizen deserved healthcare that focused on the mind and body holistically, rather than simply quick fixes that perhaps only provided temporary relief. So when your son Akshay decided to pursue medicine for himself, were you ever concerned that he may stray far from the homeopathic path that you built over decades and instead take to allopathic medicine or Ayurvedic medicine, or the list goes on? Was that a concern?
Well, thank you, Pooja, for that question. And first of all, just to correct, I've actually been in practice for 50 years, but I started my company 25 years ago. So we are a legacy brand, but not that much of a legacy. Okay?
Legacy in the making.
Thank you very much. Coming to your other question of, I think if you believe in yourself and you believe in your purpose in life, I don't think you worry about whether your son is going to carry your legacy or somebody else is going to carry your legacy. I'm very privileged that my son is actually carrying the legacy forward and doing perhaps a better job than what I've done as well, because he's actually grown the company very much. So I'm very proud of that fact. But we also want our company, and we've tried many times to be professionally managed. So we have professional CEOs who've been managing it as well. Because ultimately, processes, systems, they outgrow people. And therefore, if you actually want to create a legacy brand, you want to make sure that you have very proper processes, systems, and of course, the right kind of people in place to whom you can delegate. So if you have the wrong people and then you don't delegate, it's a problem. If you have the right people, but then you need to delegate as well. So I think if you do that, then you don't worry about legacy and you don't about succession planning. It just happens automatically. But like I said, I'm very privileged that my son actually took to homeopathy and he's doing a great job.
Well, I think, thank you for that
I'd like to
candor.
chime in there actually,
Please,
because the choice
Akshay.
was mine, right? So I come from a family of doctors. My nana and my dadiya were allopathic doctors. My mom is one of 5 siblings. All 5 are doctors. All 5 except her are allopathic doctors and married to allopathic doctors. So there was more of a swing towards allopathy in the larger family.
So a family meeting is like a medical conference.
I see.
But whenever I would go out with my parents, my mom is also a homeopathic doctor, and so was my dada, I would hear the wonderful stories of people getting healed. And just to let you know, at that time, my parents were struggling. It's not like we had a great organization or company that I could come back and sit into or take charge of. It was a single-man practice that I really saw growing up. And I saw my father struggling. I saw him taking buses to work and really coming up the hard way. But what I also saw was the beauty of the homeopathic cure. And every time I would hear people telling him at parties, oh, you cured me and I came to you and I never had to fall sick again, is really what made me make that choice.
You know what? I think it's important you shared that, the both of you, because on platforms like this, so often we celebrate success, but it's important to highlight the struggles as well. All right? So coming to you now, Akshay. Sure. All right? Dr. Batra's healthcare, to my knowledge, consists of over 350 doctors, most of them hair and skin specialists. But since you've, entered the ecosystem and the equation, if I could say so myself, that diversification that we've seen under the Dr. Batra's umbrella now includes mental health, sexual health, stress management, weight loss management, and the list goes on. So as you continued to grow these individual practices, were you ever concerned that you'd see an erosion in patient trust?
This is, I think, where legacy meets relevance. Because while you always have a legacy, you also need to stay relevant. Our legacy is actually homeopathy. And hair and skin was one of the things that we were allowed to advertise, which is why we got very popular for it. We got some great results. But homeopathy is anyway great for all these ailments. And it was my job to bring this to the forefront. As times are changing, metabolic health is becoming a big concern. Diabetes, PCOD. Today, 20% of women have PCOD in India.
Right.
10% of women have thyroid in India, anemia. So as diseases are changing, we also need to change and adapt ourselves to be able to treat them. Homeopathy offers a holistic and beautiful solution to all of this. So what we're doing, actually, what I was doing with the company was staying close to the core, which is homeopathy, and expanding it into different verticals that can actually give benefit to patients who are suffering from chronic ailments, where homeopathy can help, and most importantly, without the side effects that the allopathy medicines have to offer in these areas.
So you see this as largely synergistic growth, if I can say so myself. And, Dr. Mukesh, coming back to you, I think one of the tenets of the Dr. Batra's healthcare brand has been compassion over privilege. And you don't simply talk the talk, you walk the walk. In that, my understanding is that every second Wednesday of the month, Dr. Batra's is offering free of cost consultations, free of cost medications. But, as you pass on the baton to your son, is he in complete alignment when it comes to this particular tenet? Because as leadership evolves, as legacies evolve, so do views. And perhaps he has a completely different one altogether.
I think the most important thing in any organization, as far as leadership concerned, is to actually build a very strong value system. And strong value systems start with the family. So if you have a family which is aligned to value systems, it's automatically aligned to charity, to reaching out to people, to benefiting people around you. It's automatic. So I think having, built an organization and having built a family which has very strong family values and is very strongly value-based, I think automatically, it becomes natural that also healthcare should be agnostic to poverty and to riches. So I'm saying I've done a lot of research on this. I just need to share with you that there's a huge connection between money, economics, and healthcare.
Right.
So people who are poor suffer more, obviously, because they don't get the right nutrition. But beyond a point, it becomes negative. So when you're very, very rich, you then suffer from what is called a VIP syndrome.
I see.
And therefore, then what happens is you get put into hospital unnecessarily, you occupy beds unnecessarily, you have a little bit of gas, and then you think, I'm getting a heart attack, and then you want to sit in the ICU. You're actually denying the privilege of a person who really needs the healthcare just because you have money.
Sure.
So beyond a point, money is negative, but up to a point is very important. And therefore, I believe that healthcare should be for all. My vision for healthcare in India, and for Viksit Bharat is, a Bimari Mukt Bharat. We have to live a life without disease. And I've seen disease actually killing families. It's the second largest reason for people to go into debt in India. The first is marriage. You look at the weddings and you look at the amount of money people spend, they borrow money to get married.
Absolutely.
And then they regret the rest of their life anyway. But also, the second biggest reason is healthcare. So, a lot of healthcare today in India, I would say almost 80% of healthcare in India today is private. It's not public. The government doesn't fund you. You have to pay for it. A lot of insurance also doesn't cover all kinds of diseases. So it's very difficult if one single illness can put you back, as far as economics is concerned, back into many, many years and into debt.
Absolutely right.
So it's very, very important to therefore have a system of medicine which is cheap, easily available, affordable for everybody, and it has reach as well, which is why we are in 150 plus cities in 10 countries. We want to reach out as much as we can to as many people as we can.
I'm going to chime in there again.
Please.
You spoke about values and whether I imbibe the values that my family has. I think here the question is values or valuation, right? Because if you're doing a free service, you often wonder, is it going to pay back? Are my profits going to go down? Am I spending
still required? The brand is established.
Absolutely. I think in healthcare particularly, value and valuation go hand in hand. Because if you do good to society, you get good back. Right? We're a brand that's really survived all these years. It's been now 25 years. So many clinics. It's really word of mouth. And that word of mouth happens when you help people. So we're totally aligned and we make sure that all our clinics are open 1 day a month for free, for medicines and consultation for as many people as want to come and take it. And that's something we really want to grow. We believe that gives back to us, and that goodwill is what really keeps us alive.
Phenomenal. Second Wednesday, right? I'm marking my calendar. All right. Well, coming to you now, Akshay, with a focused question around technology. All right. You share the vision of expanding Dr. Batra's healthcare to even more communities than the ones your father just mentioned, 10 countries, over 160 cities, over 200 clinics. But you're looking to take it a step further. And ultimately, technology is going to prove to be extremely critical in that expansion plan of yours. So how do you even begin to essentially seamlessly integrate cutting-edge tech on the one hand with the extremely traditional science of homeopathy on the other? Because it's all easier said than done.
It's actually, I would say, easier in homeopathy than any other science because homeopathy treats you on a case history and a symptomatic sort of idea where the doctor analyzes your case, sits with you for an hour. We're able to do this very easily remotely. We have patients, we came in the Limca Book of Records in 1994, which my dad led at that point in time, for when he started this first homeopathic cyber clinic, where we treated some like people from 91 countries or something, I can't remember, it was back in the day, I was still a kid.
Sure.
But I'm saying we've always used technology right from the start. The focus of the company today is very simple, reach and impact. Reach means how many more people can we reach? You're sitting in their home. Can we touch you through your mobile phone? Can we help you through a chat? Can we reach you through helpline? Can we reach you in places where we don't need to go physically today? Homeopathy is recognized in 86 countries. We are still present only in 10. So we have a long way to go. And the long way to go is digital first and physical later, which was the reverse earlier. And the second is impact. When I say impact, I mean how can AI or how can technology help you to get the right prescription so that you're able to help that patient in a shorter possible time. So today we are trying to do machine learning. We have over 15 lakh cases in our database. We're trying to see how that machine learning can help you, Pooja, if you come with a particular ailment, how can it quickly scan all those patients in my database who've had that particular ailment at your age, at your gender, with similar matching symptoms, and what remedies have helped them. Now, what we're doing by this is we're actually cutting short the duration of time that a patient is actually spending in his treatment.
Sure.
Because otherwise I'm thinking, I'm trying to, apply a prescription with my knowledge, but today I can apply that prescription with the help of what 350 doctors have learned over 15 lakh patients. So I'm actually helping you reach your goals faster.
With no compromise in patient outcome, it seems.
At all. In fact, much, much better patient outcomes.
Well, coming back to you, Dr. Mukesh, my understanding is that Dr. Batra's healthcare has successfully treated over 15 lakh patients worldwide. And I think what, this brand of healthcare is especially known for is affordable, painless, highly personalized healthcare that takes into consideration the severity of the patient's ailment along with their demands and limitations. Correct? So taking that into consideration, what's left for there to do? What's ultimately the legacy that you'd like for Dr. Batra's healthcare to leave behind?
So the legacy is a very dangerous term because, in today's world, legacy is very relative.
It is.
It takes years to build a reputation. And it takes just one wrong thing to actually erode it completely. So for me, legacy really is the living patients I leave behind. For me, legacy is the happiness and the relief from pain and suffering that we are able to do with people who've come in touch with us. So I think legacy lives behind with the people that you've treated and that you've cured and the happy people that are around it. And it doesn't live behind with just because you built an institution or anything like that. But if the institution treats and cures a lot of happy people and, releases suffering from people, then that's legacy. And that's good enough for me.
And Dr. Akshay, do you interpret legacy the same way? What's your take?
Yeah, I think legacy is something that can continue and live on, sticking, core to the values. The legacy that I've learned from my father are trust, which has to be uncompromising, and putting the patient first in everything we do, in taking care of the people who have built the organization along with you. I mean, it's taken us years and a lot of help. One man or two people sitting on the dais can't do it alone. There are 2,000 people behind us who are working every day tirelessly to make this happen. So legacy is looking after all these people and making sure that their lives are enhanced by what we do.
And one final question to the both of you gentlemen. Look, when it comes to a multi-generation owned and operated enterprise, irrespective of sector, business is inherently personal, right? So topics like succession planning and handing over the baton become, pain points in many scenarios. They become a power struggle in almost all possible cases. So for members of our audience that may find themselves in a similar situation, that are perhaps looking for words of wisdom, what guidance might you have to share?
Just 2 words. It's the same in companies and the same with life. Let go. That's all. You have to let go. If you don't let go, because unfortunately that's the problem also with founders like me, because we always think that we've created the brand and therefore what will happen if it goes to somebody else, and professional management may not do it the right way. My next generation may not do what I wanted to do. There may be a clash of vision. There may be a clash of opinions. But I think you have to let go and you have to allow the next generation and professional managers to actually function. The more you interfere, the less the results are going to be. The more you just let them go and allow them to function and to grow, your brand and your company is going to happen. So just let go. And it's the same with life as well.
Huge round of applause.
I'm going to challenge that.
Please,
I want to
I'll give you the
challenge
last word, Akshay.
Because actually what I would like to add is what he's done is let go once you're sure. I'll add the once you're sure, right? I've been put through the washing machine so to speak. I started my practice in his company as the lowest junior doctor. No, I actually started in the packing department, packing medicines and sending them by courier to patients and stuff. So I've actually started right at the bottom, and I'm so glad that he made me do that. He told me, see this cabin, it's here for you, but you're going to start at the bottom and you're going to work your way up. Right? And I'm so happy I did that because that really gave me a sense of
Keep the applause coming, ladies and gentlemen. What a heartwarming story.
Of who I am today and what I've learned along the way, and the respect of other people as well. So I think you have to earn it as a second gen. I'm saying, and you have to earn that respect. And once you earn that respect, then rightfully the founder or your father will then give you the reins and hand them over with pride. I think it's been a journey where he's been leading, the race, and then watched me, put me through the grind, and once I caught up, he said, okay, now I think you're ready, now you can take over. So I think, but he's been great thereafter in not interfering in what I do. Today, even though he's the founder of the company, he spends 2 days a month on work. We have a separate office. I sit with the operating team, I think 2 hours away from where he stays so that he can't make it, to work. But we go to his office twice a month, and the value that we get, because we have discussions on what the future of the business should be, what we should do for our people, how we should pan this out. So it's a strategic discussion. The operations are then left to me and the operating team. So I think that's a great working model. So let it go once you're sure.
Wow. Could Dr. Mukesh Batra and Dr. Akshay Batra have added any more color, candor, and humor to the conversation? I don't think so. They've truly done the topic justice. A huge round of applause to them once more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A photo op, please.
I would now like to invite Mr. Abhishek Kapoor, CEO, My Home Constructions Private Limited, on the stage for enlightening us on the topic executing at scale. Building for India's next urban markets under Mr. Kapoor's leadership, My Home Construction continues to expand its footprint and redefine modern living. Please give a huge round of applause as we welcome Mr. Abhishek Kapoor on the stage with us, everybody.
Very good evening, and thank you for having me here this evening. So I was asked to speak about executing at scale. When I looked at the topic, and I was just thinking on, how do you approach something like this? And it's something which people generally take it pretty casually. So, I try to kind of define what do you mean by scale. It's not how much you build. It is not. It is actually how consistently you deliver, right? I think consistency over time builds credibility, and that builds trust. If you look at it, trust is one of the most cliched words that are used so casually, but it's really hard to achieve. What is the real market truth? How many of us have seen this happen or heard these stories? And I'll give you an example of what's happened in last almost 20 years in real estate. Let me just take an example of residential real estate. So a customer goes to a developer. He gets chased by the developer's people to sign up, to pay up, to do the booking. Once the booking is done, he gets chased up to pay the 9.9%. Till then, the developer is in love with the customer. Then the agreement happens, the loan gets dispersed, and then the next step happens, registration. And after that, once that registrations happen and the document is executed, then the developer is just sending demands. How transparently are you communicating to the customer? So the customer is now chasing the developer, then hoping, and he gets another demand, and another demand, and another demand, and not necessarily very consistently getting transparent information. And then eventually, he's hoping and praying that the product will get delivered on time, in quality, and then literally at some point in time, begs to get the product delivered. And with great sweat and perspiration and exhaustion, he finally gets his apartment, his dream home, and the developer immediately runs away. He has to just hand over and get out. He's not there to service you, he's not there. So this is a story that's happened over and over and over again. And we suffered as a sector. I mean, I am from the sector, and I am not hesitant to criticize what's not right. And unless you look a problem in the eye, you'll never solve it, right? So what's happened is that it really destroyed trust. And only after RERA and after 10 to 12 years of struggle post-COVID, did things start getting back where customer confidence has gone up, tremendously gone up. And I think, I'll now move into, but it's very, very fragile. Let me say this, that if we do not stay calibrated as an industry, I think, delivery at scale, an Indian housing market is a substantially large market. In top 8 cities, we are selling about 500,000 homes annually. And if we see what's happening, and as this market truth evolves, that the customers have started skewing towards branded, organized players. From 25% to 50% of sales are being done by branded, listed players. And not just listed, but large brands which have created this legacy of scale over time and trust, where they have delivered consistently over time. Why does it matter now? I think it matters today the most because the future depends on it. And credibility and trust once destroys sentiment and then customer confidence. Expectations from the customers have changed. They're well-traveled, they know the world, they have seen best quality products, and if we don't step up as an industry, as developers, I think we will not be able to deliver what is expected of us. So scale is not expansion, it's predictability, because predictability reduces risk, and risk reduction builds trust. So what drives and what delivers this scale? Systems and processes. I think somebody in the previous panel spoke about it, and this comes over time. It cannot happen overnight. We have seen enough people trying to do substantially large projects, the first project, and then, they bankrolled the project, and eventually they have actually gone out of business, and a lot of people have suffered. Sensitivity to the customer needs and expectations. Certainty. Timelines, construction quality is completely dependent on financial discipline. In our business is business of cash flows. If you don't have financial discipline, and if you're overstretching your balance sheet, you're definitely headed to trouble and going to create a situation for yourself and the industry. Fourth is continuity. Extremely important that the same outcome is delivered across cities, across markets. And that is what really is required to deliver at scale. There will be disruptions. This is a VUCA world. Things will be dynamic. How you manage your balance sheet, how you manage your business, and you're able to deliver and stay focused on execution and operations. I think that is something that is so crucial to stay focused on and be not in a cliched way, but genuinely customer-centric. Be sensitive to the customers. I think that is the only way you can deliver scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor, for sharing that with us. I mean, when you're scaling, trust and being customer-centric is super important. And I appreciate that a brand like yours is looking out for its customer. Well, moving on, it's now time to call on stage Mr. Sudhakar Rao, Director, ICFI Group, representing the ICFI Foundation for Higher Education, for his expert speak on the topic, Building India's Leadership Capital. Mr. Rao drives strategy across multiple universities and institutions and is also a celebrated author, award-winning marketing leader, and an adventurer who continues to inspire beyond the boardroom. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause, everybody. Let's give it up for Mr. Sudhakar Rao. Pleasure to have you.
Good evening to all the distinguished leaders who are assembled here. I'm extremely happy to be part of this India 2030 conclave. We are going to talk about building India's leadership capital. But before that, I think World War II, after World War II, I think the world has witnessed several examples of fantastic revivals, beautiful turnarounds, most significant build-ups that the history has ever witnessed. I think countries after countries have made it a point to tell the world that they can rise from ashes, they can put together their intellect, their people, their spirit, and then build their own country. And they have marked so significantly in their growth that on the global front, they have been leaders. So we are going to take today about 4 such cases and then see what kind of leadership capital that they have been able to build and what is it in for India to learn from and look at. So Korea is the first case. Starting from 1950s, they were very poor. $80 per capita income in 1953. Very poor. Poorer than Sudan at that time, poorer than India at that time, and probably many other countries. And they started focusing on education. They started focusing on building classrooms in whatever spaces that were available to them. Maybe in factories, in dilapidated structures. Everywhere they found space, they created a classroom, and then slowly they built the country to what it is today. So $80 to $36,000 per capita income in the current terms, say 2025, is what they have risen to by focusing on building classrooms before they could actually afford it. So that is leadership capital, building and looking into it much ahead of the times that they lived in, and then forecasting their growth beyond anybody could actually visualize. Now we take the Germany story. Germany has built apprenticeship. It is known for apprenticeship, we all know that. But they have not just built the top layer, that is the CEO layer, but they have built engineers, they have built project managers, they have built all kinds of support staff, that is the second level, who have actually moved on to build the factories. So they have focused on building this kind of a pipeline, who have built the factories for them, and the focus on the SMEs, the small and medium enterprise sector, which is the largest pie of their economy at that time, and even now, that has actually fueled the growth. So they have solved that problem and moved ahead, and that is actually the leadership capital building. You take Israel, Unit 8200. Unit 8200 is a mandatory services for youngsters to join, and as part of that mandatory services by military, they have created an engine of startups. Large number of startups were fueled as part of that. They joined because it is mandatory, but after joining, there's been a culture and a template for them to invent and start up companies, and companies of huge valuation that they have built, they and their alumni. So they have focused on converting what was supposed to be a mandate into a growth engine of startups. Taiwan is a very interesting story. They have recruited one leader, and that one leader has created a pipeline of various other experts, and together they have built the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company. And Taiwan is the largest and the most advanced country and company for manufacturing chips. And that's the economy that they have built by focusing on one leader and building everything around that one leader. The one leader is Maurice Chang. So these 4 lessons that we can look at in terms of India's story, and when we look at these 4 stories, we understand that leadership capital is not just a HR concept that we learn in business schools, but it is an asset to the country, and an asset that builds the nation. Can we build people who can take decisions at scale, people who can work under pressure and under uncertainty, and they can keep taking risks? That is loosely the definition of building leadership capital. and that's what we are going to look at. Can they take high quality decisions? Can we produce them at high scale? Is it just graduating students from colleges which is equivalent to leadership capital? Answer is no. It is about producing people who can make difference, people who are trained to work with uncertainties. The most unexpected things that they can look at and grapple with are the kind of people that that equalize to what is called the leadership capital for the country. Well, it grows via people. It's not like any other capital that actually flourishes by interest rates, but it goes through the people. You cannot actually import these people because there are several nuances that one has to learn about culture, about regulations, about market. You can't actually import. You will have to build it. And of course, this input of leadership capital is going to fuel the inputs of other capitals that we have in our economy generally that we talk about. Now, it is extremely important that we have understood the leadership capital in the right way. But having understood, there are several hurdles. India is a very different economy. India is a very different nation. The size is very different. The culture is very different. And the stature at which we are is always different. You can't directly import ideas into India and say we should do this. Probably it's a mix of all these. And when we mix all these things, we have our lessons readily available for us. I think we should also look at not just focusing on talking about what we have already done in terms of exporting CEOs to the world. Well, that's an outlier kind of a case. We can't talk about every now and then. We need to focus on building something locally, as in the case of Taiwan. We need to build locally. We need to identify leaders and focus on them. There are several lacunae. There are several issues and problems in our system. Employability is an issue. We have companies not finding talent is an issue. Globally also it's an issue. But then what it summarizes into is the necessity of building leadership capital for us in our own way. And as far as Taiwan, as far as Korea is concerned, they have built enrollments, they have built schools, they have built colleges. We don't have a problem of enrollment in India. I think we have a problem of building leaders who can take responsibility, accountability, and then build something that can differentiate India from the rest of the world. Of course, as a country, we need to spot people very early. We need to groom them very consciously and give them chances which are much beyond, available much beyond your own favorite networks that we people live in. It should be beyond privilege. Now, how can we institutionalize these things like the way other countries have done? There are many other examples like Singapore also, which has focused on civil service grooming to build their leadership capital. I think we need to distinctly recognize this and then focus on as a pipeline, as a strategy, as it should be a design for us and not simply by default, by chance that we look at it. Do we give responsibility early? I think that's what we require. We don't give responsibility early. We don't even encourage youngsters becoming entrepreneurs even at school level. We have a different kind of a view on that. Societal, parental, faith in entrepreneurship, and also certain decision making that they make, we don't actually assign our faith to them. That's a problem. We need to recognize that. We need to focus it on pretty early. And we also need to align our education with execution. Leadership is built when we have education as well as execution, and they have to see the consequence of what they are building, and they take responsibility for that. A lot of countries have done that, and we also have to do that. To do that, we may need a different kind of a discipline. It may work, it may not work in a country like ours, but then driven by the objective of working on leadership capital building, I think we need to have a discipline of building it, the discipline of putting everything together, aligning education with a certain kind of result-orientedness and consciousness for results. I think it will help us. By 2047 at least, we will be known for what we build in terms of actually who are the people who are going to build that, and not in terms of metrics that we usually talk about, but in terms of the quality of the people who will be responsible for shaping India that is to arrive in 2047 by the time India becomes 100 years after independence. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Now I would like to invite our next guest on stage. While recognizing transformative leadership in financial markets, we welcome Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan, Managing Director and CEO of National Stock Exchange. Well, please join me in giving him a warm round of applause as he takes the stage for his expert speak. I would love to call you on the podium to share your note with us, sir. It's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you. In some ways, we are talking about brands, and for me, somewhere on the line, one has to understand that how do you create, they've all been earning income. How do you create wealth out of income? Most of the time, we come from large cities, small cities. Somebody is doing some business, somebody is doing something else. We keep on earning income. And then we think that somebody has created a lot of wealth. We don't differentiate between income and wealth. And that is what the markets do to you. The markets convert your income into wealth. And how does that do it? In some ways, the listed companies are normal companies, normal businesses, which have many, many, many owners. And when you put in your money as a small investor into a listed company, you are becoming a small partner of that company. And if that company's profits are going to grow, the share price is going to grow. It's also interesting to say that normally when the businesses happen or business take place, they happen because somebody has a passion or somebody has no choice, but they start that business, and that's called proprietary business. And if 2, 3 of them or even 10 people start business together, it's called partnership. They started in a partnership. But it cannot grow beyond a particular point. So when you want to grow even larger, you create what we call limited liability company, where many more people can come in. And even if you want to go even larger, then you list those companies on exchanges where many people can participate. The problem with overall situation is that poor per capita income having countries are not supposed to have well-functioning markets for capital. Why? Because poor people cannot save money. And if they save money, they don't trust their brothers. How they're going to trust somebody sitting somewhere else, 2,000 kilometers away or 1,000 kilometers away, put money in their business? They're not going to visit that business ever. How will they trust that person, the manager or the part owner of the company, which is called entrepreneur? He will work hard, make money. When it comes to distribution of profits amongst partners or shareholders, he will not siphon off. This is such a great leap of faith. And that's where the listed companies are usually not there in many of the developing countries. India is an exception. There are books on economics written on why poor countries cannot have well-functioning capital markets. India is an exception. Today, we have now, NSE alone serves 12.8 crore investors directly, 25 crore accounts. If we were a country, we would be in 10th largest in the world. And when NSE started in 1994, India had like 20 lakh or 10 lakh investors. Today, 12.8 crore investors. The market capitalization those days of those all companies put together was around 3 lakh crore. Today, at the end of 3:30 p.m. when market closes, it was 426 lakh crore. From 3 lakh crore in 1994, after 32 years, we are in 426 lakh crore. Why this is important is many of you are entrepreneurs, many of you are admired for your businesses that you run. But as an individual or even as a company, when you run your enterprises, literally you are a one-man show or probably five-man show. Your business model can change. Tomorrow new technology can come. You are not able to benchmark yourselves. You are not able to understand what's happening around you. But if you list, you can actually solve succession planning issue. Many times I ask people that what is the similarity between Dhirubhai Ambani, Ratan Tata and Azim Premji? They are in different businesses, they were in different businesses, but they all became billionaires because they listed on NSE. So if you want to list, if you want to become a billionaire, then you need to list, right? And that's where I've come here to tell all the people who make these brands, at least now still there are 4 more years to go to 2030. They are giving you awards for 2030 and not today. Okay, so make it a point that all of you, whoever is running your business, plan to list your companies on NSE. Today we allow, and many times we think only large companies can list, like Reliance or others. Even small companies can list. It's a what we call SME segment, where even if you have 10 crore, 20 crore, 30 crore turnover, 2, 3, 5 crore profits, you still will be able to list. And then you will be able to take many more partners. You will be able to raise those funds and use that to grow your businesses, not only in India, but abroad. So if you have plans to grow your businesses, to create brands which are larger across India or across the world, then come and list on NSE. So that's my invitation to you, and I would like to thank the organizers for calling me here today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for sharing that with us. May I now please call on Ms. Pooja Jain, Special Correspondent, Times Network, to moderate our next fireside chat. Let's have her on stage one more time. Oh, huge welcome. I would also like to welcome Mr. Sonu Sood, who's widely recognized not just for his on-screen presence, but for redefining leadership through large-scale humanitarian impact, for mobilizing critical support during COVID the way you did. And also, he set a benchmark in citizen-first action. It has been exemplary to see him act from the front lines. Please join us in welcoming him for a fireside chat on Startup to Service, Leadership through Social Impact. Over to you both.
Sonu, where to start? You grew up as a small town boy with big dreams. And you've earned it all. Shaurat, Daulat, Sehat, Izzat.
वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है.
किस्मत. और उससे भी बढ़कर एक चीज है सर जो आपके पास है. वो है लोगों की दुआएं. Huge round of applause for that, ladies and gentlemen.
वो लोगों की दुआएं हैं, इसलिए बाकी सब कुछ है.
जी. तो सर ऐसा है कि जिस इंसान के पास सब कुछ है, हमारे नजरिए से देखा जाए तो आपके पास सब कुछ है. तो what does a low moment or a dark day look like for Sonu Sood?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for making this evening special, and congratulations to all the winners. But like you said, दुआओं में बड़ा असर होता है और मुझे नहीं लगता कि आप low point feel करते हैं when you enjoy the whole journey. But yes, sometimes when you try to save a life, try to make a difference, and you're not able to do that for some reasons. So I think that's the time you feel a bit low, but you know that this is a part of the journey. You will be coming across many such experiences, but I think that keeps us going, and every day we promise ourselves that we have still miles to go, but the journey should always be on.
सर ये आप कह रहे हैं, यकीन नहीं होता. सर इसलिए कह रही हूँ क्योंकि जैसे कि यूनाइटेड नेशंस डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम ने आपको एक पुरस्कार से नवाजा है, right? And I think so many of us know Sonu Sood, the persona, not necessarily Sonu Sood, the person. पर उस पैंडेमिक ने हमारे लिए वो सब कुछ बदल दिया. और बहुत से ऐसे लोग थे जिनके पास पावर था, इन्फ्लुएंस था, पद था,
एक तरह से देखा जाए तो हम सब हिल गए थे, and we became sideline spectators. But you somehow had the courage to dive in and take a step forward. आपकी मानसिक स्थिति क्या थी उस वक्त, and what led you to believe that one man could even make a difference in the face of a global catastrophe, sir?
You know, I feel I was just the chosen one. You know, I came to Mumbai from a place called Moga, a very small town, and with loads of dream, never knew a single soul in the city, and all I believed was that one day it will happen. You know, you chase your dreams to become an actor, work in a lot of movies, and you achieve that. But then you still feel that there's something that's missing, and I think that's what I experienced during COVID days when I connected with the common man, and I realized how important was for me to actually get connected with my inner soul. And I think that was something so special that, you know, all these years after being a part of so many successful films in so many languages, all I can say is that every single day when you bring a smile on an unknown face, that's much more bigger than any 500, 1,000 blockbuster films. So I think that's what made all the difference, and I keep on learning every single day with every individual I come across.
तो सर उसके बारे में ही बात कर ली जाए. आपने अपनी पढ़ाई मोगा पंजाब से की, फिर आपने इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स इंजीनियरिंग में बीटेक किया नागपुर से, फिर आपने तमिल और तेलुगु फिल्म इंडस्ट्री में कदम रखा. After that, your negative leads, among many other roles, became award-winning in Hindi cinema. And उस वक्त शायद the last thing that your fans expected you to do was to start a charitable foundation, right? And वहाँ पे बात खत्म नहीं हुई. Long after the pandemic became a distant memory, जब पंजाब में बाढ़ आई, आप rehabilitation में लग गए. But you surprised your fans once more with your compassion for animal welfare, sir. अब बचा क्या है करने के लिए, ये बताइए हमें.
You know, जब मैंने शुरुआत की थी, बहुत सारे जो लोग इसमें बहुत एक्सपीरियंस है, सालों का एक्सपीरियंस था, तो उन्होंने एक चीज़ हमेशा बोली थी कि अगर तू हर फील्ड में लोगों की मदद करना चाहेगा, वेदर इट्स मेडिकल, वेदर इट्स एजुकेशन, फ्लड्स, या जो भी चीज़ें हैं, सो यू वोंट लास्ट लॉन्ग. यू हैव टू समवेयर चूज़ वन थिंग कि भैया मैं अगर मेडिकल कर रहा हूँ सो मैं सिर्फ कैंसर पेशेंट्स को हेल्प करूँगा, या मैं किडनी ट्रांसप्लांट हो, लिवर ट्रांसप्लांट. यू हैव टू चूज़ वन. यू कांट कीप ऑन you know, chasing every needy that, you know, who's at your door. But the main challenge with me was that, you know, since COVID days till now, as we speak today, there are hundreds of people who come to my house, in front of my office. They sleep, they come with their medical problems, education problems. So I can't.
लोखंड वाला मैं रहती हूँ, मैंने देखा है.
आप so मैं उनको नहीं कह सकता कि यार मैं बॉस मैं तो सिर्फ यही काम करता हूँ, या तो मैं तो सिर्फ कैंसर ही देखूंगा, या मैं सिर्फ किडनी ट्रांसप्लांट देखूंगा. मुझे नहीं देखना है, and you can go. So I connect with them. I try to get connected with doctors, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, और फिर एक परिवार बनना शुरू होता है जहाँ पर सब अपना योगदान देते हैं. It's not my only, I would say, contribution to the whole system. I think every single individual I come across, they have done their bit, which motivated me to keep on doing in every vertical that I come across. So मुझे लगता है कि कोई फॉर्मूला नहीं है मदद करने का. ऊपर वाला एक रास्ता दिखाता है, आपको चलना है. Many a times you fail, many a times you succeed, but I think you create a community where people want to be a part of your family and they'll do it. मैं आपको एक एग्जांपल बताता हूँ कि कल भी मैं लोखंडवाला नहीं गया था, कल मैं बाहर शूट पे था. सो मेरे घर के बाहर जो वॉचमैन था उसने एक फ़ोटोग्राफ खींच के भेजी एक बच्चे की. अपने एक पेरेंट की, मदर फादर थे, झारखंड से आए थे, और उनका एक छोटा सा बच्चा 8-10 महीने का उनकी गोद में था, और उसने एक वॉइस नोट छोड़ा कि सर ये लोग बैठे हुए हैं आपके इंतज़ार में, और इसके बेटे के हार्ट में कुछ बहुत सीरियस प्रॉब्लम्स हैं तो आप देखिए. सो आई स्पोक टू वन ऑफ माई डॉक्टर्स, आशुतोष हैं जुपिटर हॉस्पिटल में, हमने बड़ी वहाँ पे सर्जरीज की. तो मैंने उनको एक वॉइस नोट छोड़ा कि सर ये बंदा बैठा हुआ है, इसको प्लीज़ देखें, बच्चे को कैसे बचाना है. एंड व्हेन आई वाज कमिंग टू दिस वेन्यू टुडे, ऑन माई वे बैक आई वाज स्पीकिंग टू डॉक्टर आशुतोष. ही सेड कि कल उसकी सर्जरी है सर, फिट हो जाएगा, परसों आप उसे देखने आ सकते हैं.
क्या बात है, लेडीज एंड जेंटलमैन, तालियां हो जाए जोरदार.
So I think Pooja, what I've learned in all these years is कि हम लोग हमेशा एहसान लेने से डरते हैं कि यार मैं उसको जानता हूँ, मैं क्यों उससे एहसान लूँ, या अगर आज मैंने उससे रिक्वेस्ट किया मैं कल वापस कैसे करूँ या परसों वापस करूँ. मैं नहीं करता, मैं बार बार फ़ोन करता हूँ, बार बार कोशिश करता हूँ कि करते रहें. एंड दिस इज़ हाउ I'm able to do so many things, but like I said, I'm learning every day. I'm getting this family bigger, larger. यहाँ पे भी बहुत सारे बहुत पहुँचे हुए लोग हैं जिन्होंने बहुत कुछ ज़िंदगी में किया है और कर भी रहे हैं. सो आई वुड ऑल्सो लव टू बी ए पार्ट ऑफ योर जर्नी, जहाँ पर आपको लगे कि आप मुझे जोड़ सकते हैं. तो आप इतना विश्वास दिलाता हूँ कि मैं आपके पीछे पीछे चलता रहूँगा और कहीं ना कहीं इस सफ़र के अंदर हम लोग खूब आगे तक जाएंगे. एंड वील कीप ऑन सेविंग लाइव्स, वील कीप ऑन ब्रिंगिंग दो स्माइल्स.
क्या बात है. और मदद करने का कोई एक फॉर्मूला नहीं होता. तो सोनू पाजी, एक किरदार है जिसके बारे में हमने अभी तक बात नहीं की है. आप एक फैमिली मैन हैं, आप एक पिता हैं, और आपके बेटे आयान सूद ने मिलकर श्री शक्ति विनय नगर मंदिर को एक मैकेनिकल हाथी डोनेट किया है, जिससे कि वहाँ का जो ऑन ड्यूटी हाथी था अपने नेचुरल हैबिटेट वापस भेज चुका है. जी, तो सर आप मुझे ये बताएं कि दिस डिज़ायर टू गिव बैक, ultimately, where does it stem from, and do you think your son will carry the legacy forward?
I think they are doing their bit. From past 5.5-6 years, जब से पैंडमिक ख़त्म हुआ, जब मैं अवेलेबल होता हूँ मैं सब लोगों से मिलता हूँ, और जब मैं अवेलेबल नहीं रहता तो मेरे जो बेटे हैं अयान एंड ईशान, वो लोग उनसे मिलते हैं. दे ऑल्सो स्पीक टू लॉट ऑफ पीपल. उनको सोशल मीडिया पे बड़े सारे मैसेजेस आते हैं अलग अलग लोगों से. कल रात को आई रिमेंबर माई सन अयान, ही सेड कि डैड एक IIT पटना में आप किसी को जानते हो. तो मैं कह नहीं, IIT पटना में तो नहीं जानता किसी को. क्या है वहाँ पे? कहता है देखो किसी ने ना मैसेज किया है कि वो अपनी वो फीस नहीं भर सकता, उसकी 1.5 लाख फीस पेंडिंग है एंड ही वोंट बी एबल टू कंटिन्यू. अगर हुआ तो आप कुछ करना. मैं क्या, मैं कल, मुझे रिमाइंड मी टुमारो, आई विल ट्राई टू डू समथिंग. सो गिविंग दिस एग्जाम्पल बिकॉज जब कोई चीज़ होनी होती है तो वो जो नीडी इंसान है कहीं पे, वो अपने आप वो डॉट्स तक पहुंचता हुआ आप तक पहुंचता है, एंड देन थिंग्स हैपन. Ayan, Ishan, they've been doing so many things. मुझे बड़ी चीज़ें उनसे सीखने को मिलती हैं. आई विश कि उनकी उम्र में जो वो कर रहे हैं शायद हम भी किए होते. बट आई थिंक मॉम एंड डैड ने कहीं ना कहीं कुछ सही दिए होंगे, गुण दिए होंगे, जिसके कारण आज मैं आपके साथ यहाँ बैठा हूँ. बट लाइक आई सेड, आई एम लर्निंग एवरी सिंगल डे एंड आई विल कीप ऑन लर्निंग.
Phenomenal. And Sonu, yes, huge round of applause. Keep it coming. Sonu, you started a production house in the year 2016. That's called Shakti Sagar Productions, named after your father. अगर वो आज आपको इस रूप में देखते, hailed as, a real life hero, वो क्या बोलते, वो क्या सोचते? What do you think he'd say?
देख तो आज भी रहे हैं वो. My mom and dad, I miss them every single day, every single minute of my life, and I know that what I'm achieving today or doing, it's only because of them. Only thing that I'm missing is I wish I could see their expressions in front of me कि यार तू ठीक जा रहा है. मुझे लगता है कि वो एक चीज़ हमेशा मिसिंग रहेगी मेरी ज़िंदगी से, कि मैं पेरेंट्स को देख नहीं पाया जो मैं कुछ कर रहा हूँ उसको करते हुए. बट ये भी मैं जानता हूँ कहीं ना कहीं वो ही हैं जो मुझसे करवा रहे हैं, और वही करवाते रहेंगे, और मैं करता रहूँगा.
वाओ, ब्यूटीफुल. और सोनू पाजी, देखिए, आपने दुनिया देखी है शूट के ज़रिए, आपके काम के ज़रिए, और आपने MTV रोडीज़ का सीज़न 18 होस्ट किया था साउथ अफ्रीका में. और आपने ऑन रिकॉर्ड कहा है कि उस एक्सपीरियंस ने आपको हिला दिया था. ऐसा क्यों? ऐसा क्या हुआ था वहाँ?
नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि मैं जब मुझे बड़े सालों से मैंने अपनी लाइफ में कभी छुट्टी नहीं ली है. ठीक है, मैं 24 घंटे जब आए स्ट्रगल करते रहे, भाग दौड़ करते रहे, कुछ ना कुछ इतना बिजी रहे कि वक्त ही नहीं मिला. साउथ अफ्रीका में एक ऐसा समय था कि जब मुझे खुद के लिए समय मिलता था और कई बार जब आपको कुछ करने को नहीं मिलता तब आपको पता चलता है कि ज़िंदगी कितनी तेज़ रफ्तार से निकल रही है. आपको पता ही नहीं चलता है. एंड आई थिंक दैट वाज वन मोमेंट व्हेन आई रियलाइज्ड कि यार बड़ी चीज़ें हैं जो मुझे करनी है, जो मैं कर नहीं पा रहा हूँ और बड़ी तेज़ी से ज़िंदगी निकल रही है. एंड आई थिंक आई नीड टू मेक दैट हैपन. और बोलते हैं कि जब आपके पास समय होता है तभी आप कुछ ऐसा कर सकते हैं जिससे बहुत सारे लोगों का समय बदल सकता है. सो आई थिंक उस समय को मैंने उस समय यूटिलाइज़ किया था और फिर बड़ी चीज़ें की जो आज हम लोग कर पा रहे हैं. सो आई थिंक दैट ट्रिप वॉज समथिंग दैट मेड मी पुट दोज एम्यूनिशन टुगेदर which is helping me survive in this warfare.
Phenomenal. And so, as fans, our understanding of stardom is constantly evolving. Okay, but you're a star yourself. So, as an insider looking in, if I can put it that way, what keeps a star relevant in your view? Is it being social media savvy? Is it perhaps constant reinvention? Is it a series of good decision making? You know, or is it just an instinct driven art? How might you characterize this intangible term, stardom?
No, I think stardom is very short-lived for anyone. You know, no matter how much you achieve in life, there will be a point where you will slow down and you will see कि यार मैंने जो इतने साल किया, चाहे फिल्म्स की या बिजनेस किया या पैसे कमाए या कुछ भी किया, was it really worth of the years that you are given to that particular vertical? But I feel when you are happy and you're content that you know I've done enough and now it's time to give back to the society. And I think that's the most satisfying phase of your life. When you are on the sets, you're meeting people. When you are you know, doing movies, making films, still you are helping people. So I think that's what is the most satisfying, I would say, section of your journey. And I feel it's very, very important for us to do that. And, you know, we have so many people who have done so much, and that's why they are here today. But I think that's something which is more satisfying than anything that I've ever experienced in all these years. Yeah.
So then, Sonu, when there are other celebrities जो कि corporate world में अपना कदम रखते हैं with fashion ventures or lifestyle ventures, and then there's such a contrast between you and them in that that venture for you is perhaps being of service to society. You know, how do you cross-interpret each other's goals? How do you respond to what they're doing? How do they respond to what you're doing? And how does it all sort of peacefully coexist? Because to our knowledge, there's still only one Sonu Sood. No one else is doing what you are. No one else has even attempted to scratch the surface.
You know, I always quote those lines which my mother quoted कि सोनू अपनी ज़िंदगी की कलम में दुआओं की स्याही डाल ले, फिर देख तेरा नाम पन्नों पर नहीं आसमान पर लिखा जाएगा.
क्या बात है.
So I would say I've done that bit. You know, I've always kept that in mind. और मैं साथ में ये भी कहना चाहता हूँ कि जब आप इस जर्नी में उतरते हैं जहाँ पे आप लोगों की मदद करते हैं, तो you'll come across many incidents जहाँ पे you know आप कुछ करने जाते हैं तो आपको उल्टा पड़ जाता है. You know, कई बार नहीं आप जैसे चाहते हैं वैसा नहीं हो पाता. तो किसी ने बड़ी कमाल की बात कही है जो मैंने अगली एक फिल्म भी कर रहा हूँ जिसमें मैंने लिखी है, जिसके डायलॉग्स में लिख रहा हूँ. उसके अंदर ये था कि मदद भी बड़ी कमाल की चीज़ होती है. करो तो लोग भूल जाते हैं, ना करो तो याद रखते हैं. सो आई वुड से कि ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है और अक्सर हम लोग इसीलिए कई बार रुक भी जाते हैं कि यार मैं तो अच्छा करने गया था, ये तो देख उल्टा पड़ गया, या मुझे लोग बोल रहे हैं कि यार ऐसा क्यों कर रहा है. सो आई वुड से कि हमें उस समय रुकना नहीं है. वो कहते हैं कि जिस रास्ते पर स्पीड ब्रेकर्स नहीं होते वो मंजिल तक नहीं जाता. एंड आई थिंक इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट इफ यू कम अक्रॉस दो स्पीड ब्रेकर्स दैट डिफाइंस यू दैट यू आर गोइंग इन द राइट डायरेक्शन.
Incredible to hear that. हाँ, please. और सोनू, फतेह आपकी डायरेक्टरल डेब्यू फिल्म थी, हाई एक्शन ऑक्टेन फिल्म, and you continuing to win hearts, obviously on and off the screen. हम आपके fans हैं, हम आपसे जानना चाहेंगे, where and when can we see you next? What are projects in the pipeline that you can tell us more about?
I've just completed writing my next film called Nandi. It's that I started after Fateh. Been past 11-12 months I've been writing day and night. Did a lot of research, and it's turned out very, very nice. And I hope we start in next 2.5 months. The prep has started, but like I said, this is one of the very special projects that I have in my mind. I'm doing a couple of films down south also, and yeah, this year is going to be special.
We can't wait. Yes. और हम सोनू सूद के साथ बैठे तो ऐसा तो हो नहीं सकता कि हम फिटनेस का जिक्र ना करें. All right. So sir, कल incidentally World Health Day, April 7th. कोई खास मैसेज या संदेश हमारे ऑडियंस के लिए? Anything you'd like to share?
बस यही कहना चाहूँगा कि celebrate this World Health Day every single day, all 365 days a year. It's not that one day you can just decide कि यार आज World Health Day है तो we have to eat right or we have to preach right. So I think it's very important to follow a disciplined routine all your life. They'll help you do whatever you want to do. And on the World Health Day, we are also launching this knee replacement surgeries. It's a huge program that we're coming up with. It's called Ab Rukna Nahi, Ruk Jana Nahi. You know, because a lot of people, old parents and also they avoid getting those surgeries done. They're not able to mobilize themselves, and I think that's one program which is very close to my heart. कि आज आपके parents जिन्होंने आपको चलना सिखाया, आज जब वो नहीं चल सकते, तो हमारी ये जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि हम उनका हाथ थाम कर उन्हें वापस चलना सिखाएं. So I think that's one of a very, very special program, very close to my heart.
Beautiful. और बस सोनू एक आखिरी चीज़ कहना चाहूँगी कि एक कहावत है हिंदी में कि मेहनत इतनी खामोशी से करो कि आपकी कामयाबी शोर मचा दे. और आज इस मंच पे मुझे वो शोर सुनाई दे रहा है सर. सोनू सूद, actor, activist, humanitarian, producer, director, the list goes on, and most of all, an incredible human being. Thank you. Huge round of applause once more for Sonu Sood.
Thank you so much. Thank you.